Hi, everybody that just joined us. We're going to give a couple more minutes for people to trickle in. I've also, in case you noticed, I've got my dog with me. She's going to be my co-pilot for the webinar. Yeah, excited to get started. We'll give it another 2 minutes. As folks trickle in, this is Callie. She is a 1-year-old boxer. And we got her in January. She's been a great partner during the pandemic. Now, so I'm going to get us started, and I think some more folks will trickle in as we get rolling. But my name is Will Robbins. I run customer success here at Monte Carlo, and I'm very excited today to be joined by 2 data leaders from Yotpo, Yoav Kamin, the Director of Business Performance, and Doron Porat, Data Engineering Team Lead. It's been great to work with them over the course of the year on their journey towards improving data observability. So that's the subject for today's webinar. It's how Yotpo drives data observability with Monte Carlo. And just to put some framing around everything, we'll start off, let Doron and Yoav introduce themselves, and then highlight some of the different kinds of data challenges that Yotpo has been working through. And then we're going to give some examples of how they've been putting some principles of data observability into practice at Yotpo using Monte Carlo. We'll round out with some of the impact of that, and then we want to have lots of time for Q&A as well. So we'll have a block of time at the end for questions, but also over the course of the session, if you do have any questions, please drop them into the chat. I'll sprinkle some in as we go where relevant, and then we'll save the rest for the end. Lastly, a couple quick housekeeping notes. As I mentioned, drop questions that you have into the chat. Also know that the session's being recorded. We'll share it with you after the session today. And lastly, if you see this and you're really excited to learn more about Monte Carlo or give it a try, if you go to our website right now, there's a button that says join the waitlist. If you mention that you attended this webinar, we'll let you skip the whole wait list. You can come right to the front. We'd be excited to have you give the product a try. And I see one question coming in just saying how to make sure you're muted. I don't think you're able to talk. So I think you're muted as is. But I will let you know if that changes for any reason. So with that, I want to pass things over to Doron and Yoav, who can introduce themselves and get things started.
Yeah, thanks, Will. So hi, everyone. Really excited to be here. And it's great to see that this important topic of data observability is getting more and more traction and interest. So first of all, a few words about Yotpo. So Yotpo is an e-commerce marketing platform that helps direct-to-consumer brands to increase their sales, customer loyalty, and brand awareness by providing them a suite of integrated solutions for reviews, visual user-generated content, loyalty, referrals, SMS. We're serving thousands of brands from all sizes and all industries. The company was founded about 9 years ago. We raised $176 million, and today we are about 450 employees in the company. So a bit about myself, I'm Yoav. I'm managing the business performance team, which is a team of 6 analysts and 1 BI developer. Our team is responsible for all the internal analytics in the company. We help internal stakeholders to make faster and better decisions by providing them the data that they need and help them analyze it. We're using Tableau as our BI tool for our dashboards and analysis, and we use it on top of Redshift data warehouse. I'll let Doron introduce herself.
Yeah, hi everyone. So I'm Doron. I'm leading the data engineering team in the data group. We're part of the R&D in Yotpo. I'm managing 4 people, 4 data engineers, and what my team is in charge of is basically the whole data platform in Yotpo. That includes our data lake. We work with AWS, with Amazon, so it resides in S3. We have a few data warehouses, whether it's Redshift that Yoav mentioned. We also have Snowflake. We are in charge of all the data pipelines, infrastructure. We use Spark. We use Airflow as a workflow management tool. Different query engines over the data lake. We use Databricks, and the whole topic of data governance domain, including data quality, data accessibility, whether it's data catalogs, we're using Hive, Atlas for tagging, classification. I think that it's safe to say that we're focusing most of our efforts at the moment around the world of data accessibility, quality, and trust, which are very relevant to what we're going to talk about today.
So Yoav, your business performance and Doron data engineering, what are some of the other data functions that are in the business that you work with as well? So I can get a sense of the full data org.
So yeah, I guess that most of the data org is within the R&D. So we have another team of data scientists, which are more in the research domain and machine learning and algorithms. And we have another big data team, which is in charge of data services within the product itself. Yeah, and like the interaction with the ops team outside of the R&D.
Great. So we'll jump into some examples from how Yotpo is applying data observability to their ecosystem. But I do want to highlight that, while I'm sure Yotpo has their own quirks and nuances to their data ecosystem, the sorts of things that they're fundamentally addressing are things that anybody that's interacting with data can relate to. You're working with data to help the organization drive better decision making. You're working with data to help the organization be more efficient in different ways, be more data driven, be more process driven, and you automate more things. And you're working with data to help deliver better customer experiences. I think these are things that we can all relate to. And also, I think that we can all relate that when data is missing or broken or wrong, that's a really big problem. And it's something that I think everybody that's worked with data can relate to, that pain of discovering the data's been broken for a while and maybe you didn't know, or somebody telling them that their dashboard looks wrong or something like that. And that can result in really serious problems for the organization. Not just does it sometimes mean broken data pipelines or broken dashboards that people need to then go and dedicate time and energy to debug or fix or anything like that. It can also lead to poor decision making, and it can also lead to broken relationships. That could be tension between departments. It could be customers that are upset with you because they were operating on data that they thought was good that you had given them, but it actually wasn't. This whole suite of problems that can come downstream of bad data. And at Monte Carlo, we call this data downtime, this idea that there's these periods of time where things happen and then the organization can't use their own data. And we think the solution is this thing that we call data observability, an organization's ability to fully understand the health of their the data in their system to reduce or eliminate data downtime. We call it data observability because we're borrowing on the notion of application observability and kind of like the New Relic type thing. We think there should be a sort of New Relic for data teams, something that makes it easy to understand, is the data healthy? Are the pipelines working as designed? And is everybody getting the data that they expect and need to get their job done? And so just in terms of some framing on how this works in practice with Monte Carlo. We're an application that connects to where your data lives. So it could be data warehouse or data lake. We connect to where that data gets presented to data consumers. So typically that's BI. And then we observe how that data is getting transformed along the way. And then we apply what we call our data observability engine, which is primarily a set of ML models that learn what's the normal behavior look like for the data in each table or the data as it moves along those pipelines. And then we provide a lot of data health tracking and data health monitoring, sets of tools to troubleshoot issues as they come up, and also incident analytics so that you have a good sense of what types of issues are popping up most frequently and where. So with that, I want to pass things off to Doron. She's going to start out by sharing an example of how they're putting this into practice at Yotpo. Oh, you're muted, Doron.
My example, I want to I really relate to what you're saying, Will. And I want to say that data observability, sorry, in Yotpo, when I think about it, it's always been a challenge because it's really hard to have data observability. And once it was a nice to have feature we wanted to have, and as time went by, it became a must have because the company grew bigger and problems became more complex and business became more complex, and we had exponentially growing pipelines, and it was very hard to keep track of everything. And you want to move very, very fast, but in order to move fast, you have to have confidence in what you do and how it influences stuff down the line. So, and specifically, you talked about friction, and I think Yoav and I had our share of frictions along the way because data engineering and BI are always in some kind of tension, having BI be a customer of data engineering, and I think we suffered a lot from inconsistencies and misunderstandings. So yeah, I can really relate to everything you're saying, and yeah, from here I can go on to my example, right? Okay, so I'm sure this happened to all of you, right? Where you have some end user, some consumer comes up to you and say, data is wrong, right? And a lot of the times they don't even know, they can't even mention what is wrong with the data. It just looks off and numbers don't look good. I expect it to look different or something like that. And first of all, I think, personally, I think this is really embarrassing because you're the owner of the pipeline and you don't necessarily know what went wrong and you don't know when it happened. And then you start searching in the dark where it comes from, what is the root cause from this. And what we used to do usually is go from the complaint and backwards in the lineage as far as we remember and we know, and to track this manually to find where the problem actually started. So from here I can go into a specific example, and I'd like to let you know how things can look like with Absolver and how and why it looks different. Okay, so before I start talking about the problem that we had and share it with you, so the minimal required integration, you can click again. So the minimal required integration you need with Monte Carlo is very basic configuration, just having a connection string, some permissions to access your data catalog, and to hook some communication channel to flow the alerts through that. And from that point on, it basically you get automatically out of the box a holistic view of your data warehouse or your catalog or whatever. So here we can see an overview of Redshift, for example. It's our data warehouse, and you can see all kinds of information here, and everything is pulled automatically. We did practically nothing except for integrating Monte Carlo. And of course, you can do much more, right? You can monitor a whole bunch of field level statistics, but this is the basics, okay? And from this point on, you have alerts flowing in. It can be schema changes for things getting added or losing fields or whatever, or changing data types. And what I like most is the anomaly detection that you get, which is really priceless. And from here, I can dive into my example. So about 2 weeks ago, we had, this is really a screenshot from our Slack channel, right? And so about 2 weeks ago, we had this anomaly detected, and you can see here like the table name, fact segment events last, and you can see the details. So it's about 6 times bigger than the normal volume. This table holds like a daily volume of data. So just to give you some context on what we're looking at. So this table actually reflects events coming in from a third party we're working with. It's called Segment IO, and it's basically used to trigger all kinds of pipelines further down the road. If you want to send emails, for example, to your customers, and you can trigger events that will cause emails to be sent, for example. And we also save this data in the data warehouse because it helps us track our behavioral data for the B2B customers, being Yotpo store owners, our customers. So we had this alert, and well, it seemed like really out of the ordinary. It's actually the first time we ever got an alert on this table, as MC can track like seasonality and it can handle like fluctuations in data. So something was definitely out of the ordinary. So click once again for me. Well, thanks.
And one question I have for you, Doron, is like, did you need to set any thresholds or anything? Like you said, you had never gotten an alert on this before.
No, nothing. This is like the basic you get from Monte Carlo. Yeah, you can see right here, looking at this chart from the platform itself. So you see the volume of events over time, and you can see like the daily seasonality, and you also have monthly seasonality and yearly seasonality, and Monte Carlo like digests all this and knows how to alert when something is actually out of the ordinary. That's why I'm saying it stands out that it never alerted us before on anything regarding this table. And you can hardly see like the red bar. It's around November 2nd, and that's where we had the big spike of events. And you can see it like recurring the next few days. So this is really alarming because I know how important segment is, and this has caused a lot of issues further down the road. So I had to like investigate this and troubleshoot. So first of all, you can use Monte Carlo to troubleshoot whenever you see such an anomaly occur. Yeah, so you can click into the catalog, and then you can see like the lineage of the table, so where it comes from and what BI dashboards are affected by this table further down the road. You can see which users are interacting with it and when it was recently changed, and all this metadata that you can get around this table. Well, in this specific case, it got me so far, okay, because I knew what I had to do to dig in to get to the root cause, and that's what I went ahead and did. And to make a long story short, I looked into the data, and I found which specific event it was that caused like this enormous spike in events. I saw it was actually something around email bounced events, which is something very critical specifically for our marketing team. As when you have a lot of email bounced events, and here we have like about 1.5 million bounced events, you can have your reputation impacted by this, something that can cause email providers to consider you as spam, and this could be really catastrophic for our marketing team, right? And from there on, it was not a very long procedure to get to the root cause and find the team that caused this whole mess and stop this on time. But I think that the really amazing thing is, and I'm feeling pretty confident in saying this, there is no way we would have known anything went wrong if MC hadn't alerted us until it was too late. Because we had no alerts set up on like the number of events, and no one had alerts set up on the system that we use to send out emails. And I think this is a very interesting example because it's not directed specifically at BI, and it's not necessarily the dashboards that are affected because something that should be considered normal happened, but this had an applicative meaning to this, which would cause real damage. And so I was super impressed by this, and I just love this example. And ever since this happened, I tell this to anyone in the company, pretty much. So, yeah.
Thanks, Doron. And I think a couple of things that were also significant were you're also, I think, being charged by segment event, right? So this big spike happened in the number of segment events. It wasn't being monitored, and it actually has a direct cost impact for you as well, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Cool. I love that example. Thank you. I think
Me too, yeah.
a couple points worth nailing home are we provide a baseline level of monitoring without the need to like set any thresholds or define the normal cadence of updates for a given table or anything. Like you can go in and do that if you want to get really specific or if you have specific business context. But we also try to make it really easy for the folks that don't have the capacity to do that or don't know where the problems might pop up or arise. So I think one of the things that's really cool about Monte Carlo is you get a baseline level of monitoring that's entirely ML driven, and we apply it to all the data that we have access to. No need to like set thresholds or spend a bunch of time instrumenting things. Cool. Yoav, do you want to share your example?
Yeah, so I want to share another use case of data observability from our side, from the BP team side. So yeah, another use case is where data observability actually became crucial to our day-to-day operations. Was a case where our business applications team, which is a team that is responsible for integrating and maintaining all the internal operational systems, such as Salesforce, our CRM system. So they wanted to deprecate a certain field in Salesforce, which turns out to be not accurate anymore, and basically switch it with another field. And many of our dashboards were heavily relying on this field. It's basically a field that helps us like segment our customers, so it's pretty crucial. So we had to prepare in advance for this change, obviously. So yeah, basically the thing that we wanted to know and understand is, first of all, what are the downstream dependencies for this field? Just to get a general overview, a bird's eye view about this table's usage, where is it being used? We also wanted to know who is using the table and how. So we use the query logs in the catalog tab in order to know that. And we also wanted to know which dashboards are currently using the old field that needs to be replaced. So just to get like a overall lineage visibility. And also to track where has the new field been added to get a better understanding about our progress towards the goal of switching these two fields. So instead of being reactive and fix the dashboard after they break, which is what we had to do before we had Monte Carlo actually, we can now get the visibility that we need and be proactive.
So Yoav, I love that example because I think you described to me the old system literally was when there was a significant schema change coming from kind of like the people that own Salesforce or I think business applications team. You would pretty much, it was a sort of like a game of whack-a-mole where like you would just wait for which dashboards broke. And was it just like people would email you and say, hey, this thing is down, and then you'd go and fix it?
Yeah, so if I wouldn't know about this in advance, so this is what would have happened. Sometimes I actually knew about it in advance, so I just tell them like, okay, guys, you can deprecate the field. I know that the hit is going to come, and I will be prepared tomorrow morning to to get into the dashboard and adjust them accordingly within a few hours. Hopefully, nobody will actually notice. So yeah, this is unfortunately the way we actually had to do it in the past.
Cool. And just to add some color to the slide on the screen right now. So these are screenshots directly from your environment where this is an example that you shared with me a few days ago where there's this particular field, opportunity record type ID, was being deprecated. And Monte Carlo was able to tell you all the different Tableau workbooks and Tableau views where that field was being used today.
Yeah.
And then this is the new field that it's moving to. And so you're able to track where the new field is being added. You essentially can go into the Monte Carlo catalog, you click on the field, and it tells you where that field is being used. So not only can you see where it's used, but you can kind of do your cross check and see, okay, have I like checked all my boxes in terms of where I need to, which dashboards I need to update to.
Exactly.
And just I want to just recap a couple of the things here because I know we went through them a little bit quickly. It's really easy with Monte Carlo to show the lineage of data. So from when it's ingested in the lake or the warehouse down through all the successive transformations and tables that it's passed to. And then we extend that down into BI as well. So we can show the lineage from where it's ingested all the way down through the different BI reports where it gets shown. So it's a really quick way to see, hey, where is the data in this table getting passed to? And then you can also flip this around, and maybe you just know that there's a BI report that's showing faulty data. You can start your search with a BI report and say, hey, show me everything upstream from this particular report. And so you can see, if there's a weird problem on some, or weird data showing in some dashboard, you can quickly see what's the upstream lineage, and maybe you discover that 5 or 6 generations up, there's actually a faulty table or a table that's not updating. And similarly, the query logs within Monte Carlo's catalog feature are really helpful in understanding how is that table being used, who are the users that are querying it, where is it being updated from, things like that. You get a context of how the table's being used within the ecosystem. Yoav, do you want to just kind of summarize a little bit on the value of observability, or is this Doron on this one?
Me actually, but you okay. Will summarize. But yeah. So if it wasn't clear up until now, and these are just like two very small examples that we didn't really have to work very hard to find for how data observability serves us, and I think that once you have it, you realize how critical it is and how essential it is within your ecosystem, having the ability to have observability into the metadata of your pipelines. So yeah, like more than anything, I think that it shows that you can maintain a reliable data infrastructure. And I assume that everyone here in this forum are somehow around data infrastructure, consumers or producers of infrastructure. And reliability is pretty much everything, right? Because once you lose trust and you lose reliability, then there's not much point to whatever it is you're trying to achieve within your platform. And with MC, having the automatic monitoring of data without any manual threshold setting, it's just too easy. I was telling Will and Yoav before that I was pretty in the back when they first decided to integrate Monte Carlo into the data warehouse, and I was just drawn into that Slack channel, which kept like proving itself over and over again. And whenever we had an alert, it was so helpful and helped us prevent things from getting bigger before we catch them on time. And having the tools to troubleshoot what went wrong, and having the ability to take control over your data and where it flows is something very strong as an owner of infra. Also having the visibility to understand like who is impacted by, okay, you have some data corruption, who is using this data, where is this going to, is it production, is it applicative, is it BI? Having this with Monte Carlo is something very, very, very strong, because it's very hard to keep track without proper lineage. And at the end, like Will said, it's all about data downtime. And yeah, I know it's like a phrase that MC are talking about a lot, but I really love that phrase. And yeah, data downtime is what is linked most to our reputation as data providers and data owners. And I can say definitely that ever since we have Monte Carlo, at least at the field of the data warehouse, and this is another reason why we would want to integrate Monte Carlo into like further domains of the data, like the data lake itself. We have less and less data downtime, and friction is not as it used to be, not at all. So that's the way I see it.
Thank you, Doron. Yoav, do you want to summarize from your perspective?
Yeah. So I totally relate to everything that Doron said, and on top of that, a few of the things that data reliability gave us. So basically, it gave us, painless schema changes, no broken dashboards. Obviously, you probably all know that schema changes are inevitable. We can't stop, whether it's the business applications team or the data engineering team or any R&D team. from doing these changes. Sometimes we actually want them to do these changes, but what we can do is preparing to these changes in advance and prevent data discrepancy or broken dashboards, which obviously lead to trust issues with our stakeholders. It also gave us visibility into the health of the data sources for specific reports, 24/7 monitoring of upstream tables, and also easier collaboration between the data engineering team and the BI team, which resulted in increased trust and better communication between the teams.
For sure, yeah.
So maybe I can just round out with some closing thoughts, and then there's a handful of questions that have come in that I want to touch on. So, I mean, in this case, data observability helped to deliver more reliable dashboards, which is in terms of like they weren't breaking whenever there was a schema change, which helps folks like Yoav sleep better at night and have more peace of mind, but also creates a more consistent and seamless experience for the consumers of those dashboards. Definitely an increase in team productivity and efficiency in terms of catching things early before they became a big deal, and also having more tools to troubleshoot things when they pop up. And then lastly, better collaboration between data engineering and BI teams. And it sounds like it sometimes can extend beyond just those teams as well. When everybody has kind of like this common sheet of music to all look at to understand what are the sorts of problems that are popping up, when did they pop up, where did they pop up, how are we going to troubleshoot them? And collectively, we think this increases trust and confidence in the data within your organization. So with that, I'll just highlight again that mention that you joined the webinar, and you'll have the opportunity to skip our waitlist. We'll put you on the fast track if you go to our website or click the little button that just popped up and join the Monte Carlo waitlist. And we want to really thank you for attending. You can learn more at our site, montecarlodata.com. Also really recommend that you subscribe to our blog. We push out a lot of really great content on data observability, data reliability, data management there. Or feel free, if you have specific questions, you can reach out to me. I'm wrobbins@montecarlodata.com. And now I want to take some questions, but before we do that, I want to really thank Yoav and Doron. They're actually both joining us right now from Israel. So it's like the end of the week in the evening there, and so they chose to party with us tonight. And we really appreciate you taking the time to join us.
No worries.
So let me switch to the chat, and some of these questions I can actually knock off pretty quickly, and then some of the deeper ones I'll pose to the group. So does it track, one question came in, does this track BI dashboards on Tableau? Yes, it does. So I think one thing that we'll do is we show where those reports fit in the greater context of the lineage of data. So what's upstream of that, or if it's a workbook, what are all the different views downstream of that workbook in Tableau? Also, we do, from our Tableau integration, we collect a lot of metadata about those reports and present them to you in the catalog view. So if you have specific questions around who created or who's using Tableau or something like that, that's something that you can do. Is this monitoring system for live data, or these checks run in batches? Most of what we do right now is in batches. We can dial that frequency to be pretty frequent if you're running real-time data, and we can get a pretty similar value from that. We do also do some live monitoring on certain metrics like freshness, for example. How does Monte Carlo trace the lineage? The main way we trace lineage is by parse, at least in the Yotpo example, where we're looking at a lot of stuff in the Redshift environment. We are parsing the SQL out of the query logs in the warehouse. And we do that to stitch together a picture of the lineage. Let's see. One question that to pose to, perhaps this is a good one for Doron. Did you experience any alerts that were noisy, and how did you control those use cases?
like every machine learning algorithm, you do have sometimes false positives and the other way around. I must say that I think there were maybe a handful of cases where we had false positives alerting us, and the other way around as well. So it rarely happened, and it happened like near the beginning when we started integrating with Monte Carlo, because like naturally it does get better over time. I can't say it was noisy at no circumstances. And whenever we had something like this, we communicated with the Monte Carlo team, which investigated what went wrong and why we got the alert. So they didn't repeat themselves. So I can't say it was noisy like ever.
The other thing that I'll call out is you can mute certain data sets that are, like if it's Scratchpad or Dev or staging or something, like you can choose which ones you get alerts from and which ones you don't. And so that is kind of like a first line of defense, just to kind of remove any unwanted alerts from your field of view, regardless of whether they're like a true alert or something that might be false positive. Another question, this one is, would managing the pipeline issues at the source be better than managing pipeline issues kind of like further, like as the data continues downstream? I don't know if, Doron, if you have an opinion on that one, or I can also share my point of view.
Oh, I do have an opinion, because yeah, we're talking about this a lot. First of all, yes, right? It's much better to catch things at the source and prevent them from happening. But life is more complex than that. And I think to get a holistic protection against data corruption, you have to have both. And what Monte Carlo gives is like the smart solution, right? Because anything we would try to impose, like on checking the quality of the end result, wouldn't be good enough. So you always have to have like the combination of preventing the issues to occur in the first place, and like checking on the other end that the data looks good, because you can't always do that, right? And sometimes you're stepping into a full-blown system that's already data flowing in, and you have to start somewhere, right? So it's like a relationship going back and forth.
Great. One question, I think I can take this one. Does the algorithm need some onboarding or learning time for each table or schema in order to detect anomalies? Yes. Typically, for things like freshness and volume, we want about 10 to 14 days of observing the data before we'll start triggering like meaningful alerts on that, just so that we have a good benchmark. For the field level monitoring that we do, so we have this part of the product that's field health monitoring, where you can opt a table in for much more granular tracking for any column, or we'll do it for, you opt the table in, and we can do it for all columns, this whole battery of statistical checks within the column or within the table. That stuff will, it needs less than a week before it starts triggering meaningful alerts, sometimes just a handful of days if there's a kind of like high traffic table with a lot of data coming in. Did Yotpo have to connect their Tableau as well as Redshift to Monte Carlo, and what other integrations does Monte Carlo offer? So I don't know, maybe Yoav and Doron, do you want to answer the first one?
So yeah, the question from Tableau side, yeah, we had to give Monte Carlo a user, so be able to integrate and see the customer query on the side, the one they want to the side.
Naturally, and like basic permissions to be able to track SQL.
Yeah, and the way it works on the warehouse is we deploy a thing that we call it the data collector, but it's like a little SQL snippet that creates a user, and that sends back metadata about your data to our application. So Yotpo's data never leaves their environment. The only thing that's getting sent back to our application is metadata is the metadata. So things like, how often is the table updating, different statistics about, columns within a table, how many rows are in the table, the schema, things like that. What other integrations are there? So I'll just list off, this is not an exhaustive list, but some of the most frequently used ones are on the BI side. Tableau, Looker, Chartio, Periscope are some of the ones that we most frequently integrate with. Super easy process. And then on the data warehouse side, Snowflake, Redshift, and BigQuery we can implement on in like under 20 minutes. And then different data lakes we also do a little bit more than 20 minutes, but just to give you a sense. And so, yeah, there's a question here. Do you have an integration with Looker? 100% yes. So another question, what would you recommend for those of us who do not have Monte Carlo? What could be done at a minimum to avoid end users from discovering an issue? Yeah.
I can say that from the data engineering side, like people say, we also invest in like applying all kind of data quality checks and validations within the source when we are generating data from different microservices within Yotpo. And also we are integrating as part of our Spark jobs all kinds of data quality checks. But as I said before, I think that only like a smart machine learning algorithm can give what Monte Carlo gives. And I think that's quite a lot of effort for someone that wants to do it by themselves. So anything else would be nice, but you can't like politically control all over your data pipelines by implementing data quality checks, because you just never know what will happen.
Great. I want to just do one more question, and then I want to let Doron and Yoav go on with their evening. So the last one is, do running all these tests continuously start to increase the cost of the data warehouse significantly? And maybe Doron, if you're able to speak to that at all for Redshift, I can also just provide my quick thoughts afterwards.
Yeah, so it depends it depends on the data warehouse, right? Because in Snowflake it will look different than Redshift because it depends on the pricing method. And in Redshift itself, I can talk about performance only because it's like cost isn't affected by how much you use it. And I can say that we hadn't noticed like any impact Monte Carlo had on like performance in Redshift, like none at all. And this was something I was worried about, like starting off with this.
Thanks, Doron. Yeah, the way we've architected is so that it adds pretty low compute just in terms of the way and the type of queries that we do. And so that's something based on your particular data architecture, we'd be happy to talk to you more about. But in general, we've architected so that it does not add much burden and much compute. Great. Well, I want to wrap things up. Doron and Yoav, thank you so much for joining us. For the folks on the line that stuck around through the Q&A, thank you so much for joining us as well. We'll send out a recording of the session later today, and please send us an email. I'll put my email back on the screen. But yeah, send us an email or send me an email if you want to discuss more or learn more about the product or get started with it. We'd be happy to chat. So thank you all so much.
Thanks, guys.